Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the Ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
A very, very good friend of mine sent these words of wisdom over to me last night, and I thought I'd share both of these with you this morning. First of all, we are advised to not judge all Muslims by the actions of a few lunatics, but we are encouraged to judge all gun owners by the action of a few lunatics. Funny how that works. And secondarily, seems we constantly hear about Social Security, how it's going to run out of money. How come we never hear about welfare running out of money? What's interesting is the first group worked for their money, but the second didn't. You just think about that for a little bit this morning. How true. Good morning. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by our patriot with the Pledge of Allegiance, a very special young lady. Thank you very much, Kate Smith. God bless America. And after last night with the State of the Union message, please, I am praying that this morning. God bless America. I'm Zeb Bell. This is Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers from Lee's Furniture, like 459 Overland and Burley. And, of course, I love my pillow. Check out the memory foam pillows at Lee's Furniture. And also, Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them at 734-6969. And I just want to check and see Little Miss Homemaker, mom, and also journalist. Did you stay up and watch in its entirety the State of the Union, Gina?
I did. Actually, I did.
I did too.
And yeah, I'm sure that we're going to be talking about that.
Oh, yeah. I wrote everything down longhand. 8 pages of notes. 8 pages.
I stopped at about page 3 because then I knew it was just complete rhetoric.
Well, what I did, and we're going to go through the first hour, is I'm just going to make a very small category synopsis.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet and very succinct this morning as to what was said, what wasn't said, what needed to be said, and what should have been said.
Okay, we'll go point by point.
Yeah, we'll kind of go through those a little bit, but I understand we have the lovely Miss Abby on the phone with the weather. The lovely Miss Abby on the phone with the weather. That really made her day. The Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, and then we do have Michael on with the weather.
That sounds better.
Doesn't it, though?
Okay, good morning, Abby. How are you?
Good.
Well, good.
Just so you know, it's raining.
Thank you for that weather forecast, and it's slippery out. Deanna almost slipped on the porch. Hey, quickly, give us the Pledge of Allegiance, Abby, would you please?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag with the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and God bless you and your family, and I really appreciate hearing from you. Have a great day, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Wonderful little girl right there. She is a young lady. Now, let's talk to the world's best weatherman, Michael Rogers, weather.com. Michael, tell us about this weather.
I can't do that because Abby just did, and I just lost my job. What do you think?
Hey, it's raining here at the ranch, and it's slippery outside.
Yeah, it is. Let me get serious about 30 seconds. You got that freezing rain thing going on. It's a one-day event, but it's out there. So if you're out on the road today, please be careful. It's a one-day event. 43 for the high when it's over said and done. 27 for the overnight low. Sun and clouds all the way through Super Bowl Sunday. That's why it's a one-day event. But otherwise, just be careful out there today. For the purpose of folks curious about the moisture in the Magic Valley of South Central Idaho, you know, I'm not from here, so in one respect, when I listen to people talk about it, it's interesting because it is a big deal for everybody concerned. But one thing that I have seen in the 7 years that I've lived there is that nobody in the United States of America could deal with a drought like you people had. I always just tell people all the time, you know, folks in Idaho dealt with a 6-year drought, no water. They got through it. You'll get through this one, too. So far, the snowpack at the Jackson's looking pretty good. But any moisture that you can get on the ground, I know that you will take. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you. The best weatherman in the world, MichaelRogersWeather.com, right here on Zev at the Ranch. Thank you very much. Hey, before we get started, I want to remind everybody about Valleywide Home and Ranch. They've got everything in there for your farm, your ranch, your family. They've got all your clothing. I mean, like with the rain coming down, and then you know it's going to get colder. We're supposed to have snow. They got all the Carhartt coats. They've got everything over there. And, of course, they've got all your tack for your horses, horse blankets. They've got everything. They've got ice melt. You may need that today, so be careful out there. And all the selection of great dog and kitty cat food and all the feed for your livestock. Listen, they really care. And all the 4-H'ers know that's the place to go for all their equipment is Valleywide Home and Ranch, 910 South Oneida in Rupert. Steve and the rest of the crew serving you at Valleywide Home and Ranch. Last night, of course, we had the State of the Union speech, and I, for one, sat there with pen in hand, jotting notes as fast as I could in regards to what was said and what wasn't said. And I'm going to give you folks, with the interruption of some very important commercials, a synopsis of the speech and what was said, and like I said, what I think should have been mentioned. It's over, and really, what did Obama say, and what will the State of the Union accomplish? And I'll be quite frank with you, I thought it was extremely vanilla, I thought it was extremely generic, and I thought it was extremely I. In other words, I will do this, I will do that. Let's break it down into categories, and in jobs, it was really interesting that he would brag about the unemployment numbers at about 6.7%, when in reality, every actuary that studies these numbers will tell you that we're probably at a figure of 14 to 15% unemployment due to the fact that there are no jobs available. Many people have given up on trying to find jobs that are of their qualifications and of their educational background. So he really didn't have any real answers, just quite frankly, a lot of hyperbole about jobs last night. And tying that into, and Gene, I want to have you give me a short answer on this. I'll be right with you. Tying that into jobs was also his phraseology on small business. He said, quote, I'm going to do all I can, and I will do more to help business grow. Well, in essence, with Obamacare, and what it has done for people that have 50 or more employees and the cutbacks and the going to part-timers, etc., he has done more harm on jobs and also small business relationships than any other president in our history. Now, if you took notes, do you agree with me so far on those first 2 points?
I do agree with you on those on the first 2 points. And actually, he had made some comment about I'm going to have to do some research because there's a specific number that I wanted to bring up that related back to 1987 in jobs.
Yeah. And the equation there just doesn't hold any weight because A, less people, B, a different circumstance on the economy, everything. I think his analogy was very poorly constructed.
I do think so as well.
All right, now, here's one that really upset me last night, and I did due diligence on this and did a lot of paperwork on it this morning, was energy. He really tooted the horn last night on natural gas production and then absolutely denigrated the use of oil and also fracking. That wasn't mentioned by name, but it was mentioned through his environmental statement last night. And I'll guarantee you he opened up a big can of worms when he said that we've saved enough money on certain items of energy, and now we can invest more of those dollars into wind and solar. Did you pick up on that last night?
I actually did pick up on that last night, and he also said that we are less dependent upon foreign oil than we have ever been. But where is all this foreign oil going? And why are gas prices so high?
And the thing that really bothered me about the wind and the solar is that we constantly have seen, you've read stories about it on newscasts, it's been on all the network newscasts, about the absolute mess that wind and solar is in, especially solar and the companies that are going bankrupt, etc. And he made the comment, we are the global leader in the solar industry. And I really have to question the merit of that statement when we have so many companies filing for bankruptcy and begging for bailout money. So a statement like we are the global leader in the solar industry really left me cold. And here's the big lie and line of the night last night in his speech. He said blatantly, and he looked at the teleprompter to make sure that he had it memorized, and then he looked out at his audience and he said, the debate is settled. Climate change is a fact. And then he went on to disavow thousands and thousands of climatologists, scientists, and scholars of major universities all over the world that have been saying for the last 3.5 years that we have gone into a cyclical cold snap, as can be proven as to what's happened this winter and other parts of the world. And this man, along with the other third world countries and others that are supporting the United States, kicking in more money, this is it, more money into their coffers so that they can enhance their situation. This is going to cost us a bunch of money because the debate is over. It's settled. Climate change is a fact. No, it is not. No, it is not, and please be thinkers out there, audience, because there are literally thousands of scientists, climatologists, and scholars, many of which were on television last night and this morning, that are really upset at the president ignoring a cyclical cooling trend that the Earth is going into, and it started about 9 years ago.
Thank you. Thank you. It's not global warming. This is something that our Earth goes through, on an annual basis, or however it is, but
I've got to pay.
It's not global warming. It's not global warming.
That's exactly right. I've got to pay some bills, and we'll take your phone calls, but we're going to do the best we can to tell you the deceit. And that's what it was last night, a lot of deceit that was incorporated into that speech to make the general public that's listening to a State of the Union message think that all is rosy, all has a great big scoop of ice cream with whipped cream and a cherry on top, and it was the farthest thing from the truth. I'll be right back. Stand by, caller. I'll be right with you. Don't forget Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Open the doors at 7:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, till 5:30 in the afternoon. All your furnace filters, all your heat lamps, all your extension cords, they've got all your electrical needs. These people know, these people care. Please stop in, Ramsey Heating and Electric, and they'll take care of you as they have been for over 57 years, serving you with warm winters and cool summers. Ramsey Heating and Electric on Overland in Burley. By the way, tomorrow is the big day, and I'm going to be getting all ready. I'm going to even try to get on a pair of Wranglers tomorrow. Man, I'm going to go first class. It's going to be our lunch bunch at Denny's Restaurant. Don't miss it. It's going to be fantabulous at, of course, 611 North Overland in Burley. We're going to be starting at 11:30. I'm going to have to take out of here a little bit earlier than normal to get in the wheelchair and get in the pick-em-up truck. You come on down and celebrate our first lunch bunch at Denny's Restaurant. Oh, it's going to be great. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time, anytime. And don't forget, seniors, show your AARP card, 15% off your bill. Hey, stop in. Great people at Denny's Restaurant in Burley. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. I've got a question for you. Are you going to be talking about the state of the dictator? Oh, wait a minute. I mean, State of the Union message today?
I have been for the opening of the program, Jory. Why haven't you been listening?
Well, I have been. I just thought I'd make that comment.
Oh, okay. I understand the tongue-in-cheek, but we're going to get right back into some of the other items, and thank you for your call, my dear friend.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Get out of your way.
Okay.
Keep it going.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. All righty. The next category that he went into last night, and I'm going to take the call momentarily, stand by. I want to just mention quickly, was immigration reform. There was a demand last night for Congress to go under his principles and under his rulings and under his guidelines of immigration reform. And basically what he wants is 11 million illegals, possibly closer to 12, to go to the front end of the line and become legal just in time for the 2014 elections. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. Caller, go ahead.
You know, there's two sides to what went on last night, and what really got me angry was the rebuttal. This Republican Party is going to have to buck up. They didn't even go in there one time and mention all those were lies. They should have hit him right between the eyes and let the public. They had a national audience. They should have let the public know where he was lying.
Dwayne, I'm just going to say this to you, and you can take it as egotism or whatever you want. I don't care. My synopsis of what happened in the speech last night is far better than what the Republicans gave.
What do you mean by that?
What do I mean by that is I'm breaking it down in an honest form, telling you exactly what happened and what's negative and what's bad about it, and I think I'm doing a better job than the Republican response last night.
Well, absolutely, and they should have had somebody on there that knew what they were talking about and hit him. They don't do it. He got by with all those lies last night.
I do not understand, and I've said this before on the air, and I've said it publicly in many meetings I've been at, etc. What in the world is the wrong with the Republican Party that they are so disenfranchised with coming out and putting forth a show of support for the Constitution and what's right and wrong? They act like they're scared little grade schoolers that somebody might come over and rap them on the knuckle with a ruler. I am pathetically upset with the Republican Party.
So am I. We heard the lies, and he has a way of telling these lies where they're I almost believe them, but then we didn't hear the truth.
There you go.
They had an opportunity. They had a national audience, an opportunity to set this guy straight. And they blew it.
I totally agree. Dwayne, thank you for your call and your observation, my friend. Thank you. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Jeb.
Yes, sir.
I watched that fiasco last night, and I'm telling you, I'm more disgusted now than I ever was with this president and his administration.
Well, just like what Dwayne said a minute ago, though, there's food for thought on really thinking about the John Boehners and thinking about the Republican Party per se and the response last night. I don't want any more of this good old boy network. I don't want any more of this good old boy, let's shake hands, let's go have a beer after work and a burger and all this. Al, we've got major problems. And last night, the Republican response did not address the problems like I'm going through right now with the energy, with the small business problems, immigration reform. None of this was categorized to the point as to how they, the Republicans, can make it better in 2014.
Well, I went and listened to all these lies and all that stuff. It's wonder his nose isn't 6 feet long. But anyhow, it just disgusting. And then when what he did with that soldier, I know that was touching, Zeb. But damn it to hell, it's not right for a president that can stand there and lie in front of the American people after his administration has cut the benefits and everything else against our veterans and our soldiers.
Yeah, right there.
Stand there and do what he did. I'm disgusted with him.
Well, right there, though, and you're very perceptive, and it's coming up later in my list, but I'll talk about it right now. It was nice. It was very nice. It was touching to mention not only that soldier, but all of our soldiers. And it was very worthwhile to say how much they were appreciated, etc. But there was nothing in that speech. Unless you can prove me wrong, there was nothing in that speech that said how they're going to be taken care of, that the money is going to be streamlined, the care through the VAs are going to be more streamlined. There was nothing that gave any substance to saying thank you to our troops.
I know it, and I did notice it on his way out, and this shocked me. In fact, as I commented to Polly, I said, holy hell. She says, what? And I said, Rangel refused to shake hands with the president.
Well, that's kind of where two guys met in the woods and didn't know each other. Hey, thanks, Al. God bless you, man. All right, take care. Yeah, I want a little bit more about immigration reform. Gina, jump in here on this. This is nothing more than a ploy that Frosty's been talking about for years. It's nothing more than a system basically to enhance another 11 million citizens, if you will, that have come here illegally, and we have given them the affordable rights of acting in an honest fashion. Let's just equate this to the state of Massachusetts quickly.
Okay.
State of Massachusetts is now poised to go over what the voters want and give driver's licenses to illegal aliens. And one of the ladies that's fighting this back there in Massachusetts, her son was killed by an illegal alien drunk driver that should have never been behind the wheel of a car. These people have broken the laws. Gina, you can't cover up the fact that if they came to this country illegally, did they or did they not break the law?
They have broken the law. They did not enter the country, and they did not go through the process to become a legal citizen.
So my question is simply put to everybody, and I've got a hard break, why are we accommodating lawlessness? Why are we accommodating lawbreakers and giving them not only possibly driver's licenses, which are going to be IDs and they can go anywhere, get on planes, et cetera, but also tuition for college and many other amenities that we're not even providing for many of our qualified citizens in this country? I am sick and tired of lawlessness getting accommodation.
I know. I wish I had the answer for that one. And when he said in his speech that independent economists say that immigration reform will grow our economy and shrink our deficit by almost $1 trillion.
How?
Their math is exactly. Their math is off. It will not.
How? We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the jobs. We don't have the welfare system, which is going to be taking another huge hit. We do not have the homes. We do not have the schools. We do not have the preparatory services in this country are not there for an automatic line of another 11 million plus 2 million a month possibly coming in after that.
No, I think all of the illegals should be forced to go back home, and if they want to come back, please do it legally. I will have much more respect for you if you do it legally and then you actually contribute to the system that you're taking.
I would like to have somebody tell me one other nation in the world today where you can break into their country illegally and get the accommodations and the gratuities as if you were already a citizen.
None.
There isn't any.
Nope.
I got to pay the bills.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget Travel Loop Supply, 1050 West, 203 south of Hayburn. They've got all your shop tools. They got your nuts and bolts, and they got your welding rods, and they got your Bubba ropes. They've got everything for you. Bubba ropes, you better check out the Bubba ropes. It's going to get muddy, sticky, and everything else out there. Don't get stuck. Get zoop right out of the muck. They'll pull you out. Bubba ropes at Travel Loop Supply. They deliver the goods. Call them at 438-8730, located at 1050 West, 203 south of Hayburn. Jim McCall, our old buddy, and Travel Lube Supply. Here now, the Capital Press Ag Minute.
Today's Ag Minute brought to you by the Capital Press, the West Ag Weekly.
Rebecca Rubin, one of 12 eco-terrorists involved in a string of arson attacks on timber operations, laboratories, ski areas, and other facilities around the West, was sentenced to 5 years in jail this week. The sentence is the shortest allowable under federal sentencing guidelines. In a trembling voice, the former Earth Liberation Front and the Animal Liberation Front member read from a statement that acknowledged the damage wrought by multiple arsons while asserting that she would continue to fight for the rights of animals and the preservation of the environment. U.S. District Court Judge Ann Aiken said that Rubin showed contrition and lived in an emotional prison cell during 7 years as a fugitive in Canada. She turned herself in and pleaded guilty.
For more agriculture news and information, turn to the West Ag Weekly, the Capital Press, and CapitalPress.com.
No, woe is her. I feel so much sympathy for her. Oh, yeah, please. Let's disregard her sentence and just let her out. Oh, that poor person. After all the crimes they've committed against livestock owners and everything else, and then to feel compassion for her? Are you kidding me? Please, not this morning. I'm not in the mood. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Okay, the one part of the State of the Union speech last night that Gina, I'm just going to ask you, were you surprised, were you a little bit more than shocked that he did get into Obamacare? Because most pundits thought, leading up to the speech last night, that he would skirt that like it was the plague.
I kind of was rather shocked that he did get into that particular topic because it's not been successful. No,
but here's how the guy handled it. And you got to give him an A for raising a big dust screen to cover up the issue. He got on Obamacare last night and said, we're doing something about making sure that people with pre-illnesses are covered and insured. And he went on and talked about how more than, and this really irritated me, how more than 3 million kids, and that's the terminology that he used last night. These kids are up to 26 years of age, by the way, have gained coverage on their parents' plan. He touted that and said 3 million. Then he mentioned about how millions, underline that word, will be getting coverage for pre-existing conditions. And he went on and gave all the great extolments about how wonderful Obamacare is. Not once in his embellishments of Obamacare did he mention that, maybe 3 million kids, punks that are too lazy to go out and work for themselves, are still on mommy and daddy's program till they're 26. But he never said one thing about the almost over now 6 million people that have lost their policies, are in a quandary, and don't know what they're going to do to cover their family because they don't know if they can get insurance comparable to what they had. This was disgusting last night.
Of course he wasn't going to mention that topic and mention that particular fact, because it does him no good.
But you know what? The honesty factor, the needle was off the charts last night for what he didn't say, didn't want to say, and couldn't say, because it would have made everything else irrelevant as a lie.
Yep. You're not going to get it. You're not going to get an argument from me out of that. I sat there, and we've got 2 phone calls, but I just want to make this point. There is one thing that stood out to me the most that the president said, and he said this several times in a couple different ways, but in just, I'm going to go around Congress.
Yep.
I'm going to do what I want to do with the power of the pen and the phone.
Yep.
I'm going to go around Congress. I'm going to get what I need, what I want done through executive order. And that's what I took out of it.
It was the holy eye. It was the holy grail of a man that is dedicated now to taking over as a dictator form of government and skirt Congress. Yep. And the thing that bothered me, right there, caller, don't go away. The thing that bothered me the most is if I were a member of the House or a member of the Senate, I would have sat on my hands for the rest of the night in protest for that man basically saying, I don't need you, I don't want you, I don't trust you, I'm going to do it on my own.
I noticed that during a lot of his speech, and so much applause, and I get a lot of that's just, protocol.
Yeah.
But there were some members of Congress who did not stand up, who did not clap, who did not want to shake
hands. And rightfully so.
And rightfully so. So we've got 2 phone calls.
Okay. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, I watched some of that, but finally I couldn't handle it anymore, and I shut him off. But they talk about border control. There's one way to stop them guys from coming over the border, and that's E-Verify. National E-Verify, if they had verified these guys' citizenship, if they didn't have a job here, they wouldn't be coming across the border.
Fred, the immigration system, and you and I have talked about this in private settings, the immigration reform or the immigration problem is not any kind of a problem whatsoever if you'll just use common sense. E-Verify, close down the borders, make sure that who's here belongs here, work out a system like they had years ago to where you could come up and work on the card system, etc. Fred, this problem is blown so much out of proportion because of Eastern people, Eastern congressmen, Eastern senators that are dumber than a box of rocks.
All they got to do is follow the Constitution.
There you go. There you go. God bless you, Fred. Thanks much.
You bet.
Appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why they're making so much of a monumental problem out of something that could be solved so simply. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Hello? Gina, is that caller still there? Am I still there? I heard a click on the phone line. Hello, Gina, am I there? I'm not sure I'm on the air either.
You're off.
Dadgummit.
And good morning again, Zeb.
I have no idea what happened.
Well, we experienced a power bump here at the studio, so it cut everything off. So
actually, what it was is Eric Holder said enough is enough, and the Department of Justice just cut me off. I'm kidding.
They shut down the entire studio.
Yeah.
I mean, we just went black, and I'm like, oh, great.
Well, my point is that they've made monumental problems out of molehills.
They have.
And now here's something else. Oh, we got another caller. I forgot about that. Caller, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much for your patience. Go ahead. Talk to me, caller, quickly.
Oh, good morning, Zeb. If anybody wants to know where the economy is going, just keep an eye on the stock market. And you'll find out that we're on the edge of a light depression in this country. We're not over the recession. We're going downhill fast.
The stock market, right now, Tony, the stock market is really scaring me. I don't have a lot of money in stocks and bonds and mutual funds. For the simple reason that I didn't like the roller coaster effect. I didn't like the fact that I'd see some great peaks and then all of a sudden I'd see some horrendous bottom of the Grand Canyon effect on my money. And what I'm seeing right now is something that I don't think is going to be short term, and I'm very, very concerned about what the stock market's going to do. And I'm going to make a little prediction. I think after last night, with some of what Obama talked about jobs, and there's one part of his story last night that absolutely we're going to get into next, and that's income inequality. We're going to talk about that. I think is going to drive the stock market even lower today, and mark my words and see if I'm wrong.
11 million new people on welfare is going to drive us into a 1930s depression. I can feel it coming, Zeb. I've been through it.
I am not going to argue with you because you have been through it, but I'm just going to say I hope and pray that we're all wrong and it doesn't happen. But, Tony, God bless you, and Mary, thank you for your call this morning.
You're welcome.
All right. Gina, last night, this next segment is what really got me the most upset. Maybe it didn't bother you as much as perhaps immigration, energy, or whatever. But this next segment of his speech left me to the point where I may have to go buy a new geyser chair because I beat the living tar out of it last night.
Okay.
He started talking about income inequality. He started talking about all the things, the hyperbole that you want to hear, like women equal pay for equal work. Absolutely, I'm in favor of that.
Yep, okay.
But here's where the mud got stuck in the water. He started talking about how he is going to go ahead and raise the federal workers' minimum wage to $10.10.
Right.
And which is going to involve just a minuscule number of people. But The caveat last night was when he turned to his teleprompters and the audience and said in a challenging voice, "It's time for everyone in the private sector to give America a raise." And he said, "I challenge everybody to go along with what I'm going to mandate for the federal workers and go with a $10.10 minimum wage and give America a raise." Right there, Gina. Every employer probably was shivering, had a heart attack, or absolutely didn't know where to go, where to turn, etc., because it was great rhetoric. But the bottom line is, who's going to pay?
My brother and I were actually speaking on this topic last night, and of course, my brother, he lives with me. He works a minimum wage job. What I don't think what the president understands is, and my brother even gets this, when you raise the minimum wage, it is going to also raise the cost of items out there to purchase because, employers that are producing something have to raise their costs and raise the price of their products so they can cover the wages. Now, you've got a twofold thing here. Number one, people are going to lose jobs because the employers cannot afford to pay $10.10 an hour. Secondarily, the price of their products are going to go up, so less people are going to be able to afford said product.
There you go. And that is the synopsis of the whole problem, and we're going to see more job reductions. We're going to see more part-time work put in effect, which goes back to the category that I talked about earlier this morning about actually hurting small business. But with the challenge, and this rhetoric in this speech last night, it just drove me mad. It's so easy to stand up in front of literally the American public on all the networks at the same time and say in a booming voice, "It's time to give America a raise." But there is no indication that this man was smart enough to figure out, where is the money going to come from, Mr. President? It comes off the back of the employer trying to keep the doors open, trying to keep employment for his workers, trying to stay competitive in a very competitive world. But to stand up there and say it's time to give America a raise as if they had a carte blanche check, where is the money going to come from?
Oh, well, apparently he thinks it's going to come from small business owners, but small business owners are having a hard time keeping their doors open.
That is exactly the point. And I am so frustrated with the level of incompetency from a man that has never run a shoe shine shop. He has no clue how to run a business, has no clue about the checks and balances, the debits, the credits, everything else, has no clue how to meet a payroll. And he's sitting up there saying it's time to give America a raise. I really got off the chair on that one.
Can he give his paycheck that he makes every month and pass that out, not get a paycheck, and just give all of his employees a raise?
You know, and the thing is, I guess you could say in a synopsis, we are all his employees because we're working to pay the federal government, and what his administration is now keynoting as what we're going to pay more for.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to take a call.
Yep.
And then we got a weather forecast. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Zeb. And, of course, the climate change, you know, that's top front, so that means more increases, more war on coal, more higher fuel bills and so forth.
Absolutely.
But, you know, afterwards, a comment on to one of the TV stations, Simpson comes out and said he'll give the president an F for his speech and State of the Union address, but he's the one that voted for full funding of Obamacare. So, you know, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
Absolutely.
And that's the way he's been all along. We need to get him out of there, because he said what needed to be said to sound good after the speech. But he really supported a lot of Obama's deficit spending and Obamacare and so forth by passing that budget bill.
By the way, a note to you and everyone else, and I am going to mention this at least twice more before the hour's up. Next hour at 9:30, we are going to have challenger Brian Smith on the air, and he will take questions from you in the audience as he runs for that 2nd congressional district seat. So be sure and remember that this morning at 9:30, okay?
That'd be great, yeah. But Obama, he did deserve an F. He just said nothing about the deficit. He, like I say, creating jobs, giving, raising the minimum wages. All it's going to do is just cause more unemployment.
Absolutely.
But that's what he wants. He wants more people on the welfare rolls so that they'll vote for him because of the handouts.
I agree with you, Adrian. Thank you for your call as always. We appreciate it. I got a weather forecast coming up. Thank you. Don't forget our friends at Quality's Electronics, and they've got super savings events going on right now on all their TVs. Oh, you've still got time to run in there and talk to Steve and talk to Bruce and the rest of the crew and check out the Samsung 60-inch LED. Save $200, just $9.99. 60-inch. Watch that Super Bowl with class. And don't forget, they've got the Sony 60-inch 3D Smart LED. Save $300, $13.99. Super savings events at Quality's Electronics, 1730 Kimberly Road in Twin Falls. Holy buckets. It's the Super Bowl this weekend. Still have time. They're great at service at Quality's Electronics. You get in there and see them today. Here's Michael Rogers with a weather update.
Hello, everybody. Your weather to the Magic Valley. You got a one-day event with rain and freezing rain for it today. Please be careful. You can't expect these slick roads. But it should be raining. I don't think you're going to see any snow today versus everyone else, especially to your east. 43 for the high, and we'll get about 27, 28 for the overnight low. You'll come out of it tomorrow with sun and clouds all the way through Super Bowl Sunday. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Brought to you by Quality's Electronics. Get in there today. Tell them I sent you. 1730 Kimberly Road in Twin Falls. Calls are welcome. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. And one other little point last night, Gina. I know I'm short on time, but I want to kind of give a quick synopsis here of the rest of the State of the Union speech. There were just a couple of lines devoted to this subject, but it brought a smirk to my face because this is something that he had promised to do with due diligence to his base, for his base, when he was elected the first time. Do you remember last night when he said, "I am making another plea to close Guantanamo Bay"?
I think honestly, I had mentally tuned out at that point in time.
Really?
Yeah.
I picked up on that one as, okay, Mr. President, where do you plan to go with these people? We have already turned back many of these killers, many of these torturists, many of these people that have the idea that America should go down in flames. We've turned them back to their homeland. They have gone back into being fighters for the Al-Qaeda, many of which have been killed after we've turned them loose. Where do you want to go with them, Mr. President? Close Al-Qaeda, close Gitmo. Are you going to put them in Manhattan, Kansas? Are you going to put them in a suburb down by Atlanta, Georgia? Are you going to bring them out to Winnemucca, Nevada? Where are you going to go with them, Mr. President? And then, coming here to this country, are they going to be afforded the same rights as what we citizens have in this United States? These are terrorists. These are killers. These are people that have absolutely no value to the human race whatsoever. Why think about even bringing them here?
Well, he's just going to let them go while other countries keep our soldiers. Maybe I shouldn't get on this topic, but I don't... He is not a military man. He has
no clue.
He does not
have
no
clue.
And so, okay, well, let's close Gitmo, and we're just going to release everybody, all of the prisoners, back into the population of the world, while there are other countries who are holding American citizens hostage that are not going to release them.
Anybody that follows the news, anybody that follows daily events, and it's my job to do so, could sit there and categorically, like you wrote down last night the different categories and the different notes, I wrote down the different categories, the different notes, and you could categorically go through each one. And this speech was nothing more than a high school, generic vanilla speech that was written for his base. And now the main theme, though, and you touched on it earlier when we were talking about it, was the holy I am going to do this. I am going to pursue gun control with or without Congress. And those words last night left me very cold as to what he, under the word I, is going to do on new proposed gun control laws.
But if you read the words, it is we, the people, not I,
there you go.
The president.
There you go. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hello.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Yeah, it's funny that you touched on that right there, because that was the part of the State of the Union that kind of that I didn't really like, was the fact that he said that he was going to bypass Congress, and that is those are the words of a dictator, in my view.
Sir, let me ask you a question. Sir, let me ask you a quick question. Why in the world? How old are you?
Almost 50.
All right, great. You've been paying taxes for a long time, haven't you? Just like me. We're old-timers.
Sure.
Why in the world should our money be devoted to paying congressmen and senators to do a job as part of our integral infrastructure of how our government runs? Why should we pay them if this president is going to disavow them and go around them?
Well, not only that, but that the Congress is our voice in the government. That is our representation in the government. So basically, what he's saying is that he doesn't care what the voting public wants. He is going to do what he wants. That's the whole issue.
When he said this,
they are our voice.
Absolutely.
Government.
When he said last night, and he vowed this, I'm looking at a story that came across the wire service this morning from Alex Pappas of the Daily Caller, and Obama said last night, and he made this in the form of a vow. He said he's going to pursue gun control with or without Congress. Right there, every honest, law-abiding gun control or gun advocate and owner, whether you're a hunter or just believe in the right to protect your family, should be cringing, because I have no idea how dangerous this man is going to be on that vow to make more laws, more stringent laws, with or without Congress.
Well, it wasn't just guns. It was his
absolutely
views on climate change.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
Several other issues that he spoke about. He said the same thing.
Absolutely, but
he was going to bypass Congress.
Absolutely.
And, that's not the way our government is designed to work.
I agree with you totally, and we've got a little delay there on the line. I had trouble hearing you, sir, but thank you so much for your thoughts. You're right on. Have a blessed day, and call us again. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you. No, I think that was the gist last night of the speech. And then getting back to the Republicans, where was the dynamicism? Where was the fist-pounding? Where was the, hey, we have supplied information on better plans than Obamacare. Here's the facts. Where was the outrage? Where was the outright outrage saying, Obama, you're wrong, and this country's on the road to hell? There wasn't any of that. Dwayne earlier, I think, said it very succinctly when he said it was just bland. It was vanilla. It was like looking at a dish of vanilla ice cream, the response. It was pathetic. It was absolutely pathetic. I've got to pay some bills, and then I hear the microphone open. I'll get right back to you. Don't forget our friends at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Center, serving you all 7 locations with all your traction tire needs. Now, we're getting some rain out there, and in some areas it's turning to kind of a slushy ice. Be careful out there, and make sure you've got the winter traction tires that are going to get the job done for you. They've got them all at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Don't forget they've got the best in brake service, and I mean that, the best in brake service, the best in shocks and struts, front end alignments, all your tire chains, best in batteries. It's all there with the best of service. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, John on Poline in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland and Burley. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Gina, you had a final thought.
Well, I did have a final thought. I'm actually trying to look up the name of the kid that actually wrote the speech, because, of course, President Obama, he did not write the speech himself.
No.
He had one of his underlings write it, and so this person, I do believe, probably in his, early to mid-20s, and so he's completely on a different playing field, and he hasn't really lived life to know what it's really like to be out there in the real world. So I was just trying to find some information on who exactly...
I think it was a group of 3 people.
Was it a group?
Yeah, I think it was a group of 3 people, and the speech was started, I believe I read, and I'm trying to find that note as we speak. It's someplace on my desk here. I think it was started way back prior to Christmas time, etc. Irregardless of who had written the speech, basically it was a compilation of nothing but goody two-shoes. We're on the yellow brick road to Oz. Everything is good. And all the negativity that you hear in the news is just nothing more than phoniness. All the scandals that you hear about are all fictitious. Don't worry about everything. I am in control. And that's what worries me the most.
We, the people, should be in control. It is
Amen.
not I, the president, who is going to skirt around Congress with his pen and executive order to get what he wants done that is not best for we, the people.
Oh, by the way, did you hear, that Wendy Davis in Texas, it's shameful. She's got more problems.
Oh, really?
Oh, it's so sad. Wendy Davis running for governor down in Texas on the Democratic ticket. It has been discovered that she did not disclose all of the information on her stocks and her mutual funds, and there are hidden facts about her investments, and whoa, is Wendy another nail in the possibility of the coffin of her becoming governor?
Well, I think that maybe in an effort to save face, she should probably just pull out of the race.
They are hiring up the road in Austin at Kmart.
She can get a minimum wage job.
I tell you what, this woman is, if that's the best the Democrats can throw in Texas for governor, well, I don't think we got to worry about too much.
I don't think so either.
I'm going to take a little break and come back in about 6 minutes with more. Don't forget Doug Johnson at 9:06. Brian Smith running as a challenger for the 2nd Congressional District at 9:30. Call, short questions. I'm going to hold them short because I'm going to have a lot of people call. And then Dean Cameron at 10:06 and Pete Sepp at 10:30. I'll see you back in 6. Well, I stood up for a few minutes, then I sat back down. Good morning and welcome back to Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And, of course, some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. And, of course, I love my pillow, my memory foam pillow from Lee's Furniture. You check it out today. It's great. And also our great friends with Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
You know, yesterday I mentioned about getting a dumpster. They've got them in various sizes at Western Waste Services and just sticking it out in the garage and just throwing away everything. Well, I'll tell you what, somebody called me after the program and they said, what's the number we need to do that? We've got to get some things cleaned up. And I gave them the number for Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Always at your disposal. Get on the route service. They'll pick up your garbage. They've got all the porta potties, the dumpsters, everything serving you at Western Waste Services. Call Kelly today, 734-6969. You know, every day on this program for years, I've been talking about Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. And every family has the passing of loved ones, and it's such a traumatic time trying to get everything taken care of in a very short period of time. Well, at Hanson Mortuary, naturally, they believe that every life is worth remembering, and they always work to uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity, serving you and your family. Please contact Joel Heward today, the owner-manager, at 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. serving you. Really nice people. Well, I guess when we say really nice people, that means that we can get on the phone line and we can talk to a guy back in Colorado, like old Festus used to say on Gunsmoke, we're going to Colorado. And that, of course, is Doug Johnson. Good morning, Doug. How are you?
I'm good, Zeb. How are you this morning?
Oh, I tell you what, after last night, and in the first hour of this morning, if you were listening, I went through category by category, every single thing that he talked about, every single thing that he would do, every single thing that he was going to try to impose upon us. And all it did last night was give me an hour and 4 minutes worth of extra high blood pressure.
You know, you need to be looking out for your health, and that's not good for you. And this man will do nothing but raise your blood pressure. That's why I wrote the blog post I did at HorseSenseBlog.com this morning about why the State of the Union message last night was not important, and I didn't watch it. I think it's a waste of time. He told us nothing that he has not already said over and over again in many different ways over the last 5 years, and I did hear about the last 20 minutes of your show, Zeb, and you said one thing, and I thought, I'm going to say this to Zeb, maybe we'll start a little disagreement here and have some fun. You said you're tired of his incompetence, and my response to that is, I think you're wrong. He is absolutely competent. He's 100% competent. He is doing exactly what the progressives has planned for him to do. So he is competent in accomplishing their goals. He is not what we want for a president, but he is competent in doing what he is supposed to be doing.
No, I think you misunderstood the line that it was used in, the context that it was used in. And we were talking about running a business, and I said that he's absolutely incompetent at running a business. He's never run anything, and I used the words like a shoe shine shop. He's never done anything to have to really worry about the debits and credits and the payables and making the payroll and everything else. And I said that's why this man is so incompetent when he makes messages to the general public in regards to how small business should run, what they should do, and how America can grow. He doesn't know because he doesn't have the competence factor of ever having walked in those shoes.
Well, I would agree he has not walked in those shoes, and he doesn't know about that, but I would still disagree because he is saying exactly what he believes and what the progressives believe, and they believe the economy works differently than we do. They don't understand how an economy works, but it doesn't matter because they believe in a Marxist system, and they believe that's what will ultimately work. They think the government creates jobs, the government creates wealth, and so everything is controlled by that. And so in their world, he's absolutely right and absolutely competent, and so given that, I can't expect anything else out of him.
Well, you know, we could argue about the semantics about whether you agree with my statement or not, but my statement and your statements are completely irrelevant when you look at the general bottom line of things, that this man came out many, many times last night and said that he was going to do it with or without Congress, and that's basically the bottom line that scared me, whether it was gun control, whether it was with energy, whether it was with small business, whether it's with income inequality, it doesn't make any difference. It was the holy eye last night that really bothered me.
Well, I agree, and I applaud your, for lack of a better word, your upset, your anger, your frustration. I think we should all feel that way, but on the same count, I guess part of it to me is this is nothing new. He's been saying this stuff for years, and a lot of people haven't paid attention. He just becomes more overt about it. But he has told us this all along. He told the Republicans long ago that he would go around Congress if they wouldn't come to the table and do things his way, because his definition of compromise means you give up your views and you do it his way. And
I agree. Yeah.
I think what it comes down to is that we are fighting his ideology. And so when we see his behavior, we shouldn't be getting, we should be upset about it, but we should be looking at a bigger picture saying, how do we change this? Because this is not just about him, Zeb. This is about a much bigger thing. And, the blog post I wrote this morning, I cite back to, and it goes back decades and decades, but I just go back to the Clinton administration and show how Bill Clinton, who was a progressive and people don't realize it, and things he did and all the technology he gave to China that now puts China less than 5 years away from surpassing us in technology militarily. And so this is where these people have us headed, and I get really concerned that people get too focused on this one man and not understand that this is what has taken over both parties of our government.
No, I agree with you. You know, one thing I will stand behind, and this is not meant to sound egotistical, don't take it that way. I put a lot of time and effort into my notes, my research, and my study from last night till early this morning at 4 o'clock. And my synopsis of the speech and what it covered, what it said, what he said, and what it may do was 10 times better than the ridiculous, juvenile approach the Republicans gave as a rebuttal last night.
Well, I would absolutely agree. They should have had you do the rebuttal. But you see, sadly, the Republicans are caught in political correctness because the establishment that controls the Republican Party are also progressives. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They want people to like them. They don't want to upset the apple cart. And to top it off, they're afraid of any criticism of this president is going to mean they're going to be called racist, and they don't want to do that.
Why is it, though, Doug, we've seen the emergence, and I think you're going to agree with me on this. I'm not saying every single person, but we've seen the emergence of a new type of Republican, a new type of politician, to the point where they go back on the Potomac, and it's I got to get along. I've got to get on this committee. I got to further my career instead of working for their constituents. We have seen nothing more than capitulation, as far as I'm concerned, from the Republicans. I am damning them the same I am as the Democrats.
Oh, I think you should. I think we all should. And I think what we need to realize, and this is really hard for us who, have been strong right-wing people for years. Many have been strong Republicans. I was until the 90s. I walked away from the party to become an independent in the 90s after what they did with Bill Clinton's impeachment when the Republicans would not convict him. I gave up and I said, I've had it. I still lean that way and tend to vote that way, but I will not give them my party membership because I've had it with the party. But I will say, Zeb, that I think that one of the things that we need to realize is that the progressive movement, which is actually the liberal movement, which is actually, because they just keep changing their name, it's actually communism. It's that simple. It's Marxism. This is slowly encroached into our government and into the parties and given them this idea, this mindset, that they are the ruling elite and they know better than the rest of us and they need to control everything and big government is the answer. And this is what controls John Boehner and Mitch McConnell and the Republican leadership just as much as it controls Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama.
Where are we going to find some real guys? Where are we going to find some guys that got some backbone or any other terminology you want to use? Where are we going to find some women that are going to stand up and wag their finger at the camera and say, wait a minute, Nancy Pelosi, that's a lie, and call it what it is? Where are we going to find some real people that don't have to border themselves and surround themselves with political correctness so they can tell things the way they really are?
Well, I think that's the question of the day. That's the million-dollar question, and it's a perfect question, and I'll give a couple answers. We have a couple, not many, but we have a couple. We have seen, Rand Paul stood up this week and called Bill Clinton a sexual predator. Thank God he said the truth. That's what Bill Clinton is. He's not a star. He's a sexual predator. Ted Cruz stands up and says the president is acting unconstitutionally and violating the law. Mike Lee does it. So we have a few. We have a handful. Trey Gowdy, Louis Gohmert, these guys. They're wonderful, and we need to clone them is what we need to do. But what this means is we need to be looking around in our communities and saying who is it that can stand up and has all the criteria necessary to get as far as they can in running for these offices and replace these people. And I think there are a lot of them out there who don't even realize it. But once people choose to do that, you live under a magnifying glass. And so depending on what your life is and how much money you can get behind you will determine how far you can get. And sadly, money controls a lot of that. So
there's no question.
One of our biggest battles is the money part.
No, I agree with you. But, here's the deal that I think. I've said this for a long time. I think there should be income levels set that you need to run for public office because we're losing too many great people that just can't raise the cash or have the financial backing. The other thing is we need to have, and boy, have I changed my mind on this, Mr. Johnson. I absolutely think we need term limits, especially on the national level, and we need to start throwing the McConnells, the Reids, the Schumers, and everybody else with a open door policy of thanks for your service, now get out of Dodge City.
Well, I think you're right. I think there is things have changed so much. control in politics, and especially the higher you go when you up to a national level, is really controlled by money, and that needs to be changed. We really have a problem with this, and it's not that it can't be beat. I mean, we watched right here in Colorado that has gone hard left and been taken over by a plan the Democrats had to take over this state, and now they're successfully moving into other states such as Texas and stuff and making inroads there using the exact same plan. But as a counter to it, Coloradans rose up this year, or this past year, and they did a recall election, and they forced 2 Democrats to be replaced. They had runoff elections, and they were replaced by Republicans. And a third one resigned so that the governor could appoint a new person, and they would not lose control of the state house, or the state senate. But the point is that they had very little money, and people like Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who was mayor of New York, put in lots of money into these campaigns to try and save these Democrat seats. And the grassroots succeeded with far less money. So it can be done, but it's going to take a lot of work and all of us being involved.
Here we sit on the radio this morning, and it's raining outside, a little bit of icy conditions here in southern Idaho, and we're talking about the State of the Union speech. We're talking about what Obama wants to do as a sole entity with his pen and his phone, and we're talking about all the negativity in the Republican Party. But you know what it boils down to, my dear friend in Colorado? It boils down to one other simple question. Does anybody really care anymore? What about the general public? They should have been taking notes on the State of the Union last night. Moms and dads, aunts and uncles, kids in high school should have been writing themes on it. They should have been asking questions about it. There should be a demanding for better, but I wonder if anybody really cares anymore.
I think very few. You're right. Civics classes, if they still even have them, should be discussing this and talking about the constitutionality and all this, but outside of homeschooling or a few select schools, you probably would never see that. Americans should be up in arms, but Americans, I think what has happened is most people, and you and your listeners are not most people, Zeb, but most people are so depressed by the state of things in this country, they put their head in the sand and they said, you know what, I'm not even going to pay attention, and they don't even know what's going on. I find it interesting that today when I'm out in public talking to people, and I try and do it everywhere I go, I'm amazed how many more people say, I quit paying attention to it, there's nothing we can do anyway. And this is very scary when people give up, because this opens the door for a totalitarian regime to come in and say, okay, now we take over because we've dumbed them down and we've shut them up and they don't care, so now we can take control. And
absolutely.
I fear that this is where we're headed.
I could not, in any way, shape, or form, stand shoulder to shoulder with you any closer on that issue because I see it every day. People are telling me, I get sick of all that garbage. I don't want to watch that and everything. It's just a loss of the American spirit for what we have with all the blood, sweat, and tears that have been shed for this country, and it's a shame that we've got into such a blasé attitude. And I'll tell you, here's something else that bothers me this morning. Everybody should be outraged at the comments that Chuck Schumer from New York made earlier this week about how he wants to buddy up with the IRS and go after members of the Tea Party and just really kind of have like a vindictive attitude against them, kind of a polarized, we're going to knock you out of Dodge City attitude. This is pathetic that this man would call for the IRS to go after a group of people that are freedom-loving people, constitutional believing people. I couldn't believe his remarks.
Yeah, it is amazing. They are so out there right now and so upfront and in your face. They're standing on this idea that conservatives are bad, they're evil, they're extremist, and they have tried and pretty successfully redefined what conservative and liberal is in this country, so that people don't think of the true conservatives, the Tea Party-like folks like you and I, we're seen as extremists. Whereas a John McCain, who is as progressive as they come, a John McCain is called a conservative because when they move the definition, then they can use terminology freely and people buy into it. This is why when they talk, and we see it, if you ever read any news about what goes on in other countries, especially Europe, and they'll talk about, well, the conservatives and the right wing and the left wing, but conservative, for example, in Britain is about where our Democrat Party was just a couple years ago. They don't have a true conservative group over there like we do. And this is what's happening in America. They're redefining things so that they can move their argument forward.
Doug, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, and we've got about 5 minutes left. But I want to talk to you about a subject that a lot of people say, well, that's down in Texas. It hasn't got anything to do with us up here. Yeah, it does. There is a big push by the Democratic Party nationwide, and they want to really take Texas, and instead of being a red state, they want to turn it into a purple state, eventually to turn into a blue state. And they have put a lot of time, effort, and money into pushing and touting a candidate by the name of Wendy Davis to be the possible governor. She's a fraud. She's a liar. She's a charlatan. She's a lot of things, but she's not a nice person. And every single day, there's new things that come out about her, especially like this morning. Now it's found out that she didn't disclose all the information on her stocks and mutual funds and had hidden a lot of facts about her investments. Little by little, day by day, we're seeing what kind of people the Democratic Party is touting to take over the leadership of this country, and it's scary.
Well, it is. Somebody said to me recently that they referred to, some. They were talking about politicians. They referred to, Republicans and Democrats. They said, the good ones. And my response was, there aren't any good Democrats. As my wife has said, and I agree wholeheartedly with her, there are people out there saying, well, you can have good, honest Democrats, and you can have Democrats who are religious, they're Christians. My response is, no, you can't. Because the platform of their party flies in the face of morality and values and freedom and biblical values. And so I don't even accept that argument. We have a party that has gone absolutely against the traditional values of America, and now even going against the laws of America. And this is disturbing, and I couldn't agree with you more, and we do see it more and more. And I think the Wendy Davis situation in Texas is going to be fascinating to watch, because if she successfully runs, even if she's not elected, but if she runs and has a close race, it really bodes badly for Texas and for America as to what Americans are allowing.
One final thought, and I want to make this a short answer here. John Boehner. I watched John last night. I watched the body language. I watched the different cues of applause and the standing and everything. Quite frankly, I am not a John Boehner fan. He falls into the category of a Republican that should be replaced now. What are your thoughts about the Speaker of the House? Because quite frankly, I find nothing of value to John Boehner.
Well, I will say this. John Boehner should have been thrown out long ago, and I don't mean just as a speaker, but totally out of the House entirely. He is as bad as they come. Basically, he's part of the good old boys club, and he just wants to maintain his control, and he has accepted the idea of being in the opposing party. He's for public purposes, but yet he never negotiates well for the Republicans or for America. Forget for Republicans. He doesn't negotiate well for America. He always gives in. And it's been interesting to me, Zeb, in recent months when various issues come up, Harry Reid a couple times, and I don't know if this is a slip or intentional, he has made comments to the media that, oh, well, we know John Boehner's going to cave on that issue, and John Boehner always does, be it the debt ceiling, be it we're going to see him cave on immigration, I guarantee it. We have a debt ceiling issue coming up here again. I guarantee they'll cave and that'll go up again. John Boehner is worthless. We need a man who, or a woman, as the case may be, stand up and say, this is right, this is wrong, and we're not moving.
Amen.
When the president says, oh, I've tried everything, Republicans won't negotiate, they need to come back and say, we have, in the past, always been willing to negotiate. You have never moved 1 inch. We're done with that.
Amen.
But that's the kind of leadership we need. The key is, could that person get elected to the position of the Speaker? And I'm not sure they could, because there's not enough control by conservatives in the House.
I could not agree with you more. That was very well stated. Boy, this half hour went way too fast. To the writer of the Horse Sense blog and also the book No Tomorrows. New book coming out before too long. The title again, Doug?
The Leadership Secret.
All right. Doug Johnson, God bless you, man. Thanks for calling this morning. Appreciate hearing from you.
Thanks, Zeb. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, you betcha, buddy. Thank you so much. Really good friend of mine, Doug Johnson in Colorado. Hey, don't forget life insurance. Don't forget it. Health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits. Well, where are we going to check on that? Well, let me tell you, Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. That's right, Dean Cameron, Todd Siemens. Very responsive to your needs, very thoughtful, very caring, and believe me, always accessible and devoted to helping you. Call them today at 436-4424, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, serving you. Really good folks. We just had a little bit of a power flutter there, and it scared me for a minute. I don't know. Hopefully we'll stay on the air this morning. Don't forget our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. Brent Lee and the rest of the crew, and you've heard me say, I love my pillow. I love my pillow. That's right, my hypoallergenic and antimicrobial pillow. Super soft cover for cooler, more comfortable sleep. Oh, yeah. You can feel the difference with the new advanced memory foam. Check those out today at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Along with all the furniture, along with all the carpet, along with everything for the beautification of your home at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland and Burley. You stop in and say howdy to those good folks today. By the way, don't forget, tomorrow, 11:30, we're going to be at Denny's Restaurant on Overland, brand new Denny's Restaurant, new Zeb's Lunch Bunch. Don't miss it. It's going to be at 11:30 tomorrow. I am looking forward to having everybody be there for our inauguration run of Zeb's Lunch Bunches at Denny's Restaurant tomorrow at 11:30. Be there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very honored to have this gentleman back on my program again this morning. He's already been on once a couple of months ago, and he's making a run for Congress, the 2nd Congressional District seat, and his name is Mr. Brian Smith. Brian, good morning, sir. How are you?
Doing great. Good morning, Zeb.
Nice to have you on the program, Brian, and I've also invited people that want to get to know you a little better to ask very short, abbreviated questions for this half hour. My first question to you is, Brian, what were your thoughts, and I've talked about it all morning, what were your thoughts as a potential new congressman about what took place last night on the State of the Union address?
Well, thank you for having me on your show again. I did watch the State of the Union last night, and I could basically summarize my thoughts as this. According to our president, the State of the Union is awesome, and it'd be even more awesome with more government programs, according to him. And we just know that's not true. I was really disheartened last night when I heard him talk about expanding more federal control over the lives of people. Now he wants to have a pre-kindergarten program for children in preschool. He talked about one thing he said last night. He said he wants to guarantee a world-class education for everyone. That's what he said. So now he's talking about Harvard for everybody to be paid for by taxpayers. And then he already anticipates under an Obama economy there won't be jobs for these people when they get out of school. So now he's got President or Vice President Biden, he appointed last night as some sort of czar over job training, finding jobs that can match up with people's skills, and if they don't have the skills, they can match those up. And then he capped it off with another new program, this MyRA, a savings program that he said was going to guarantee a decent return without any possibility of lack or losing your funds. The federal government's already proven itself incapable through Social Security of managing the money we pay to it, and this is just another federal overlay of more government control. And the part that I really was upset about is he never talked about what the cost would be for all these programs he was talking about. And what we know is that every time the federal government comes up with a program, somebody has to pay for it, and then somebody else is a beneficiary of it. And as a result, both people lose freedom and lose control. So I found the whole thing to be business as usual. It's what you would expect from bureaucrats from Washington. I kind of referred to him last night as the central planner in chief when I heard his speech. and I was not happy about it.
We're talking to Brian Smith, candidate for the 2nd Congressional seat, running as a challenger against Mike Simpson. Your calls are welcome if you'd like to ask him a personal question about his run for that office. Brian, let me ask you this. There was one part of the speech last night, and I wrote down a lot of the direct quotes that this man gave, and you've already alluded to some of this, but he looked at the teleprompters and then looked at the cameras last night and said in a rallying voice, "It's time to give America a raise." And you know, that infuriated me because of all the infliction of pain that has been put upon small business people across the United States, myself included, and now with the fiasco and the debacle of Obamacare, and then asking to give America a raise as if the money was out there in a great big pot of gold someplace that employers could just dip into and share with everyone. This idiocy of the Democratic Party charging, and trying to make everybody income equal, it's never going to work, Brian.
Well, it's not going to work. It never has worked. It's not working now. It never will work. And I was watching the people's response, mostly the Democrats. They were jubilant with excitement over his comments, in particular that one where he said, "It's time to give America a raise." Well, at least he recognizes that under the Obama economy, the economy is not doing well. We have, 47 million people on food stamps, and we have high unemployment. You don't fix those problems with more government mandated controls. It just has never worked, not going to work. And then the other part last night, Zeb, that really got to me was how he just so boldly said, "Look, I'm going to do everything I can do as a chief executive officer of the country to implement these plans or to implement this centralized planning. And even though we've traditionally gone through Congress to do some of these things, if you guys don't play ball with me, I'm just going to do it on my own." And this is reminiscent of having a pen and a telephone number. He said he had a phone and a pen. And so he not only has these intentions and these designs to expand what is already an overreaching federal government, but he's saying he's not going to be deterred by Congress, and if they don't give him what he wants, he just dares them to stop him. This really could, if he continues like this and he makes good on his threat, this could result in a constitutional crisis with the president not observing the separation of powers.
Absolutely. Well stated. We have a caller with a question for Brian Smith, a conservative for Congress of the 2nd Congressional District. Go ahead, caller, please.
Yeah, you got my vote. Have you been getting any campaign money from FreedomWorks by any chance?
I do know FreedomWorks has endorsed me. And I know they've been raising money nationally. I know they've been doing that. But we have not received any contributions through FreedomWorks.
All right, caller. Thank
you. You have a phone number I can get a hold of you?
Let me give you my campaign phone number.
Yeah, that's fine.
Hold on just 1 second here. It is 208-538-9683.
Okay.
And Zeb, in that regard, I appreciate your caller asking that question about my phone number for the campaign. We are now expanding our reach into Cassia County and Twin Falls County.
Great.
And we're looking for people to help change out our 2nd Congressional District representative. And so if people are interested in helping, they can give that phone number a call, or they can go to the website at briansmithforcongress.com. We are making tremendous progress as we crisscross the district, and we're looking for help in Cassia County and Twin Falls.
Give me that number one more time, Brian, and I'll put it on the list right here.
Okay, it's 208-538-9683. 9683.
9683. You know, Brian, I'm sure you've been asked this question many, many times, and I know you'll be asked this question many more times leading up to the election. But if you were to take a scales of justice in the equal balance on each side, put Mike Simpson's name on one side, put Brian Smith on the other side, what's going to tip the scales over in your favor? Where do you stand on certain issues that he is absolutely diametrically opposed to? What do you think your pluses are for the state of Idaho?
Well, that's a great question. I do get that, and it's such an easy question to answer. I grew up over in the Boise area in Caldwell. I was born in Boise, but I grew up in Caldwell, and my folks are still there, and I currently live in Idaho Falls. And so I've crisscrossed this district from Canyon County to Bonneville County and Teton County, and I feel like I'm very in touch with the values and the traditions and the common sense conservative principles found in this district that people hold. And I know what they want, and I want the same thing. I want smaller government, I want lower taxes, and I want lower spending. I believe that the federal government is way too involved in our lives. They now control everything from kind of light bulb I can screw in the ceiling to how much water can come out of my shower. And this is just totally out of control with the federal overreach. Mm-hmm. And what it's really culminated in now is a $17 trillion debt. We print $85 billion a month. We borrow over 40% of each dollar that we spend. And there's a price to be paid for this. And people can pretend like this can go on forever. But, Zeb, I keep saying, and I'll continue to say it, that something that can't go on forever will not. It won't happen. And so there's my view of the federal government's role in our lives.
Absolutely.
Smaller. Now, in particular on fiscal issues. Now, you can contrast that with Congressman Simpson. He has become a big spender, a larger government guy. So, for example, he voted for the $700 billion bank bailout. He also voted to fund the Cash for Clunker program with $2 billion. Now, for us, that's very significant because the money that came from, or the money that was used for that Cash for Clunker program came from the Department of Energy. Mm-hmm. And anybody who is associated with Southeast Idaho knows that the Department of Energy oversees the INL. And so he allocated $2 billion from the Department of Energy to what was just a boondoggle program, this Cash for Clunkers. He's also voted to raise the debt ceiling without asking for substantial cuts. He's voted for every debt ceiling increase that's ever existed since he's been in office. And he even did so this last time in October when Risch and Crapo and Labrador all voted against it. Mm-hmm. He voted for the Ryan Murray budget deal, and he voted for the omnibus spending deal, which increases spending by $70 billion in the next 24 months, with promises that will be paid for 10 years out, and we know that doesn't happen. And again, those two votes on the Ryan Murray budget deal and on the omnibus spending bill, you had Risch and Crapo and Labrador voting against it, and Simpson voting for it. He's been a big supporter of earmarks. He's a supporter of federally funded National Endowment of the Arts and National Endowment of the Humanities. And these are things that I don't feel the federal government is supposed to fund under the Constitution.
All right.
So at our core, he just sees the federal government as being active in people's lives, and especially when it comes to these financial issues. And I think it's unsustainable, and it's not the proper role of the federal government.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Brian Smith for U.S. Congress for the state of Idaho. And caller, go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, good morning, sir. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Will you put a stop to this White Clouds takeover, and will you also put a stop to the funding going to the EPA? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let's take the EPA question first. I believe that Idahoans, they want clean air and clean water, and we're perfectly able to regulate clean air and clean water in our own environment at a state level. And what happened with the EPA is that President Nixon signed that into existence by an executive order, similar to what we heard last night. If you don't give me what I want, I can create it through an executive order. So in my view, the EPA was never constitutionally created through the legislative process. And if I had the ability, I would eliminate the EPA and allow states to control their own environmental issues. The other question you raised dealt with the Boulder White Cloud Mountain issue. Look, I have been very clear about this as I've crisscrossed the state. The federal government owns 64% of Idaho land. That was never intended by the framers. That was never intended by the founders. There is no reason for the federal government to control, and not even control, they actually own the fee simple title to 64% of Idaho. Idaho would do a much better job managing that land, and the counties would do a much better job managing that land. We know that. But yet the federal government refuses to dispose of that land in a way that the state can actually have the fee title, or it could be sold like they originally envisioned. So not only do I oppose Congressman Simpson's efforts on the Boulder White Cloud Mountain issue to make more federal land a wilderness area, in essence throwing away the key to these state lands, locking them up forever, I believe that the state of Idaho should be in possession and own its own land and be able to manage its own resources.
Brian, let me interject something here. Last night in his speech, Obama made a very short phrase. It was only 2 sentences long, but it basically came out and said that he was going to do all he could to protect new monument status for lands across the country. And I really cringed because I have a feeling he's going to do that with the White Clouds. Do you agree or disagree?
Zeb, I heard the very same statement, and when he said it, I turned to the fellow that was sitting next to me and I said, he's talking about more monuments is what he's talking about.
Yes.
And look, this is also an issue where Congressman Simpson and I disagree. For the last 10 years plus, he has tried to get the Boulder White Clouds bill passed. What I would like to have seen him do for 10 years is work, and what he said was, he said he needed to do that to prevent the federal government, the president, from designating it as a monument. Well, I'd like to have seen him work on legislation that required a House approval or House and Senate approval of any monument that the president designates. That would have been a much better expenditure of time. And that would have been a check and a balance against the president, not allowing him just by a stroke of a pen to create a monument and lock up federal land in a state. Instead, what it should happen is he can recommend that, but it has to be approved through Congress. That would have been a much better expenditure of time the last 10 years than trying to do what he's done in connection with the Boulder White Cloud.
Absolutely. We're visiting with Brian Smith, candidate for United States Congress, and right now, caller, go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, I'm a 96-year-old retired farmer, and I follow the political scene, I think, pretty close. Simpson professes to be a conservative, yet he votes very liberal, and he's a joke back there. He cancels Labrador votes all the time. And Mr. Smith, I live on a highway out here that's very well used, and I would appreciate one of your signs when the time comes you start putting them out. One of your signs on my place up here. I support you very well, have from the start that when you announced you were going to run against him. So my name is Fred Preston. I live on Highway 77.
All right, well, Fred,
Thank you. So thank you so much for your support. What I'd ask you to do is if you could go to my website, there's a volunteer button you can push, and you can just tell us that you have a place where you'd like a sign, and we'll do our best to get you one when we get signs out.
All right, Fred, thank you so much for your call. We appreciate it. God bless you. Thank you much. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on the air with Brian Smith, candidate for U.S. Congress. You know, Brian, I don't want to get into a lot of the national things because I want to stay primarily with what you're going to try to do, not only for the nation, but also your constituents back here in Idaho. But this Obamacare has proven to be a fruitless, absolute train wreck. And last night during the speech, Obama just basically joked about the success of it and said that now more than 3 million kids, that's the word he used, not me, up to age 26 are now gaining coverage on their parents' plan. He talked about millions that are going to be covered now, even with pre-existing conditions, but never once did this man acknowledge and apologize for the mess, the fiasco, and the heartache he's caused over 6 million families where they've had their insurance policies canceled? What are your thoughts about it as being maybe a potential United States congressman, this wreck of Obamacare?
Well, I think it's even worse than what you just stated, and you stated it in pretty harsh terms. This is also the same president who told us if you like your coverage, you can keep it. If you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. When in fact, now it's turned out, we already knew that wasn't true from the beginning, but now he's had to admit that wasn't true. And so, calls into question everything he said last night in the State of the Union. And so when he said everything he said about education and even declared that it's beyond dispute now, there is global warming and the debate is over because he says there is. Everything he said last night came from the man who also told us something that they knew that wasn't going to be true. And so I found it interesting that he didn't even reach or even talk about Obamacare until two-thirds of the way through his speech. And you're exactly right. He kind of made fun of it and laughed and joked about it a little bit. But it's indefensible. And I think he also didn't point out that 5 million people have lost their coverage as a result of having their individual plans canceled. And there was no mention of the further train wreck that's coming later this fall when the employer mandate kicks in and these group policies are going to get canceled. There's been some estimates up to 50 or 60 million policies will get canceled. You can't centrally plan anything that takes over 1/6 of the economy, and that's what he's in favor of, and that's what he's done. You would have thought that since Obamacare was his signature piece of legislation, that he would have talked about it more, but it was kind of as an afterthought towards the end of his speech, and that's because he knows in his heart of hearts that this is not going to work, and that it's only a matter of time when we all realize that. And even now, Democrats are running away from Obamacare. They don't want to be seen with the president tied to Obamacare. Some of these Democrats that have tough races. And so the whole thing's a fiasco. We didn't have to actually implement it to know that. People who understand the proper role of government know that in advance. But some people still want to defy logic and experience and history. And I'm afraid President Obama is one of those individuals.
All right, we have another caller with a question. Go ahead, caller, quickly, please. I have exactly 8 minutes left.
Yes, there's been 2 items. Are you coming on the 13th to the Mini-Cassia area to speak to us? And then secondly, whether or not it was National Public Radio or CNN said that this race between you and Simpson was a bellwether on where the future of the Republican Party was going. If I'm wrong, correct me, but I'll hang up. Thanks.
All right, go ahead. Thank you very much. Go ahead, if you would, Brian.
We will be there on March 13th. I'm looking forward to meeting the good people down there. And please, when I get there, please introduce yourself if I don't find you already, and let me know that you heard me on Zeb's Good Radio Show. Now for the other question about the status of this race. NPR, National Public Radio, flew out last week, and they spent 5 days in the district. They interviewed me for about 45 minutes, and they interviewed Congressman Simpson, and they also went around and met with people on the street. They went up to Custer County to talk about the Boulder White Clouds issues, to investigate it further. And the reason that they did come out is because they did say that this is a bellwether contest between Congressman Simpson and myself. But they're not the only ones. Politico has called it if I remember the wording right, they call it fighting for the heart and soul of the Republican Party. It's been referred to as the civil war that's taking place in the Republican Party will be fought out in Idaho's 2nd Congressional District. CNN has picked it as the 4th top House race to watch in the country. Politico and others have picked it from 1 to 5. The Washington Post picked it as the 9th most important and exciting race to watch among all governor races, Senate races, and House races. And the reason for all this is simple and clear. We have a country, we have a particular Republican Party who's divided between what you could call true conservatives and establishment people. And no race exemplifies this better than moderate Mike Simpson's voting record and a conservative like myself. And we all know that Idaho is a deeply conservative state, and that it says something that if we cannot send a true conservative back to Washington in a true conservative state, that is going to embolden the establishment crowd to continue business as usual. But if we do send a conservative back to Washington from Idaho, then that also makes a loud statement that conservatism is loud or alive and well, and so that's why it's getting so much national attention. And so what you're reading about that is actually accurate.
All right. Brian, I'm out of time, but I want you to give me a real short answer on this question. I'll go 1 minute more on this. If you were to take two issues that will sway the vote from your challenger, the person that wants to stay as the incumbent, Mike Simpson, to take that vote away from him and give it to you, what are the two issues you think will bring the vote to you instead of Mike Simpson?
Yeah, when you say the two issues from Idaho?
Yes.
The two issues that I see as being the most important is that he votes consistently to raise the debt ceiling without demanding substantial cuts in spending. I would not do that. And also his spending habits to continue to spend money on things like $700 billion bailouts and cash for clunkers and those kinds of programs.
All right.
Those two things are the defining line between me and him.
I will take one more quick call with a question, and I only have 1 minute left. Short question, short answer. Go ahead quickly, please.
Zeb, this man has my vote, and what a breath of fresh air he is. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, caller. There's a response to wrap it up. Brian, go ahead and give your response.
Well, I want to thank all your listeners and the great calls we received today and the overwhelming support that you've heard today. I just want folks to know that we're getting that from Teton County and Bear Lake County and Franklin County and all the way into Ada County. And so this is going to be a whale of a race. And for the first time in Congress Simpson's 15 years in Congress, people have a true conservative to vote for and one who has national support, and one who is not afraid to stand up for conservative values in Washington, D.C.
Very well stated. Brian Smith, running for United States Congress, 2nd Congressional District. Brian, thank you so much for your time this morning. Please know that we'll be in touch. God bless. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Zeb.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all your great questions. Really well stated, and we appreciate your input. It's time for a weather update. Here's Michael Rogers, weather.com.
Hello, everybody. Speaking of weather to the Magic Valley, you got a one-day event with rain and freezing rain for it today. Please be careful. You can't expect some slick roads. But it should be raining. I don't think you're going to see any snow today versus everyone else, especially to your east. 43 for the high, and we'll get about 27, 28 for the overnight low. You'll come out of it tomorrow with sun and clouds all the way through Super Bowl Sunday. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Thank you, Michael. We appreciate that. Hey, don't forget our friends at Let's Ride. Oh, my goodness sakes, Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. They're open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 9 to 6. And, oh, have they got the brand new ATVs. They've got ATVs all over the showroom floor. They've got all the snow machines. They've got all the accessories. Anything you could want or need is right there at Let's Ride. And they've got the best in a parts and service department. Best people in the valley. The figure figure out the problems and get them fixed. You better believe it. Don't forget, they're open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 9 to 6 on Highway 24 between Rupert and Burley. Let's ride where the fun is sold. Once again, I want to say thank you to all of you folks out there. Very, very good questions for Brian Smith, and we're going to have much more as we lead closer and closer to Vote Day 2014. We're going to take a little break and send it back over to our main studios, and we're going to come back at 10:06 with Senator Dean Cameron from the legislative session, and then at 10:30 we're going to have a really interesting conversation with Pete Sepp with the National Taxpayers Union. He's going to kind of give his idea and thoughts and a breakdown of what happened last night with the State of the Union message. Don't go away. We'll be back in 6. Zeb at the Ranch. Whoa, welcome back. Hour number 3, Zeb at the Ranch on a Wednesday, January 29th already. Kind of a rainy, really cloudy, soggy day outside. We need the moisture. Let's all be thankful. Our thanks to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers, including Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley with I Love My Pillow, memory foam pillow. I love it. I love it. You check it out for you at Lee's Furniture. Along with our friends at Western Waste Services, always at your disposal. Get on the route service today. Call them 734-6969. Right now, we're going to go to the phone line, and we're going to be visiting with a very dear friend of ours, and that is Idaho Senator, and I just got a text at the same time from Gina. Thank you, Gina. Idaho Senator Dean Cameron is at the legislative session for 2014, and good morning, Dean. How are you?
I'm doing good, Zeb. It's good to hear your voice. Good to hear you back on the radio. I hope you're doing well.
I'm feeling better and stronger every day. Dean, I want to ask you a question before we get into things with a state issue, if you will. What did you think last night of the Obamacare references in kind of a joking fashion when Obama talked about how more than 3 million kids, and that's the term that he used, up to age 26 now have gained coverage on their parents' plan, and then he mentioned how millions more will be getting coverage for pre-existing conditions, but never once in this debacle did the man ever have the forthrightness to apologize for the millions that have lost their policies and what an absolute train wreck Obamacare has been. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm not sure I can say it on the radio, to be honest with you, but let me just, first, I did not get to see his speech. I had an event. We actually had the Idaho Potato Commissioners were up here, and we were with them until the speech had already been finished, so I only got to see some of the highlights in the news reports. It frankly disgusts me and makes me frustrated, and let me tell you why. It's not just that I think the president is out of touch, and it's not just that I despise Obamacare. It's the fact that what he's saying in that remark, playing towards kids. Let me tell you what's really happening with a lot of families. They're going to enroll, and as they go and work through, they enroll, and the federal site is kicking them to Medicaid. Now, some will say, well, that's okay. An awful lot of people will say, no, that's not okay. I was providing coverage for my kids before, and I want to provide coverage for my kids now. I don't need the federal government to step in or to force the state to put them on Medicaid. Mm-hmm. But then it gets worse. Then they have to apply to Medicaid, and they go to apply to Medicaid, and Medicaid says, you don't qualify because your family has too much assets or your income is higher. And so these kids, the truth be known, there's a whole bunch of kids out there and stuck between their private plan that their parents wish to purchase and Medicaid. So he's harming more kids than he is helping, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Now, there's no question that for some parents who had kids with severe handicaps or significant health conditions, you can make the case that some of those are bettered under the new rules. But that's a small fraction compared to the number of kids that are being kicked off of their parents' plans, and it's a source of frustration.
Let's talk a little bit now in the time remaining this morning as to what is happening with you, the committees that you're on, etc., up at the legislative session for 2014. Has anything happened up there that basically kind of just slapped you in the face, broadside, you didn't expect, or is everything going according to Hoyle? Give us kind of a quick synopsis.
Well, let me just tell you a little bit about what's going on. I certainly there's stuff up here that we learn every day. It's one of the reasons I really enjoy the job and enjoy working for our constituents back home. Is I learn something every day, even when you've been here a day or two, as I have, you'd think you'd have it all down, but there's always something new that comes up, and there are certainly things that surprise us and maybe even anger us at times, but we figure out how to work through them, and that's what our job is. I serve, as you know, on the Budget Committee. Representative Bell and I are the co-chairman. She's the chairman from the House. I'm the chairman from the Senate, and that's our primary responsibility as a legislature is to set a budget. And so every morning we've been going through budget hearings. In fact, it's still, normally by this time we would almost be finished. It's still going on right now, and Chairman Bell is chairing the meeting, and why I stepped out to take the opportunity to talk to you folks. Department of Agriculture is in front of us today. It's one of the agencies. There's usually about 4 agencies, and they have the hour of 10 to 11 for us to review their budget request, what they had last year, what they're asking for this year, what services they're providing. Yesterday was Department of Water Resources. I believe it was yesterday. It could have been the day before. But in the last couple of days, it's been Department of Water Resources. And I guess one of the concerning, of course, today we woke up to moisture, but we are extremely dry. We have not seen this low of snowpack in some time, and it is very concerning. Mm-hmm. And if we don't have some additional moisture, we're going to be, not only will our farmers be in trouble, but our economy will be back in trouble. And so that behooves us as we set budgets that we're more cautious with our budget numbers, which we would want to be anyhow. Mm-hmm. And it behooves us that you'll probably see us here in the near future put some money in, as the governor has recommended, money into some water projects so that when we do have water, these projects will be up and running and we'll be able to do recharge more appropriately. We'll be able to store water more appropriately to avoid that water being sent downstream as much as it currently is.
Absolutely.
We may go ahead and fund that in this fiscal year's budget because we are coming in, the revenue is coming in a little better than anticipated. The governor had recommended in next year's budget, but we may go ahead and put the money in this year's budget and get it going so that we can be better prepared.
Okay.
Wish we would have done it a year ago, frankly, but of course the economy wasn't there.
Absolutely. Dean,
that's my primary responsibility. I spend all morning in that committee, and then in the afternoon I have 2 other committees. But most of my time in the afternoon is spent meeting individually with Representative Bell and I and various agencies and others who believe or think that they need some piece of the budget or they need the budget allocated in a certain way. And so, our job is to listen first, and then we'll start putting our budget together as we get about mid-February.
All right. Now we have a caller with a question. Go ahead, caller, please, if you would.
Yeah, good morning, Senator Cameron. I certainly agree that I work with agriculture, and I can tell you, I was just up in eastern Idaho last week, and you need to, we're the water situation is making people look at short-term crops, and it's going to definitely affect the ag budget. But the reason I have a question, since Obamacare has been funded it looks to me like the only way we're going to stop this train wreck is for the state to take bold action. And this has been done constitutionally before in past history, is to nullify Obamacare and do away with the exchange. Need to do both of those things. I'd like him to comment about that. I think you really need to look seriously at it. I think Attorney General Wasden is wrong when he says you can't nullify, because it's certainly been done historically in the past. I'd like him to comment on that.
All right, caller, thank you for your question. And Dean, please, take it away, please.
Well, thanks, Zeb. There is a constitutional argument, and I guess that's what attorneys do best, is they argue back and forth as to whether nullification will work or would not work. And I have read numerous papers from scholars at various institutions, from some of our law schools, as to whether it would work or won't work. But perhaps the most telling evidence is if you look around us in other states. Now, keep in mind, Idaho, a House of Representatives did vote to nullify. It did not make it out of the Senate committee, so I never had a chance to vote on it. But nonetheless, if you look around to the other states who did nullify, what do they have? They have a federal exchange. Ours is at least a state exchange. We are using the back room of the federal government free of charge, thanks to Governor Otter, who negotiated no charge for us to use that back room until ours is up and running. The problem with us using the back room, of course, is we are subject to some of the problems that we've seen with the website. But those problems aside, let me talk about some of the differences between our state and other states. And this is where I think the caller and I think citizens, if they really understood, would agree that we did the right thing. First, we have no charge from the federal government for using their back room. Our state site is charging 1.5%. All other states, including those states that nullified, are paying 3.5%. Second, our site is using either agents and brokers, which of course I am one, and in-person assisters. And those in-person assisters have to be trained, background checked, and have to be fingerprinted in order to participate in the Idaho site. Those in-person assisters are things like our hospitals, our public health centers. They are respected groups. Let me tell you what's going on in other states. In our neighboring state to Utah, for example, they are using in-person assisters / navigators, that is the representatives of a group that supports same-sex marriages. They have no insurance knowledge. They have no ability to help people. They have no background check, no fingerprinting, and no training. And yet those are the people the federal government contracted with. In other states, the federal government contracted with Planned Parenthood, and they've contracted with supporters of Obama's social agenda. Many of Acorn executives went out and started companies, and they've all got the contract. So some of those states who nullified, thinking they were stopping Obamacare, are actually contributing to Obamacare. They're contributing and participating in that federal exchange. We're blocking that. We're standing our ground and blocking that from occurring in Idaho. And there's probably a dozen differences. By and large, it's even more clear today than it was a year ago. Everything that we said has come to pass. It's more clear today than it was a year ago that Idaho, to protect Idaho's citizens, to protect Idaho's sovereignty, we were better off to do a state-based exchange. Those were the choices. I'll leave it at that, Zeb. I could ramble on for another 30 minutes, but your show doesn't.
No, but you bring up an excellent point, and we can close out that issue by saying this. Obamacare has proven to be a train wreck, and it gets worse every day. There's stories that are changing every day. Obama's changing Obamacare every day. But you as a state senator and everybody else involved in politics, we as constituents are paying you to be a representative for us. Look at the time of wastage that Obamacare has cost constituents all across this country.
Well, it's been ridiculous. Let me make one other point. When we have our site up and running, now let me just tell you that initially, when our board is made up of Idahoans, Idaho businesses, Idaho individuals, and we're going through the confirmation process of these Idahoans, which is something we wouldn't get to do if it was a federal site. So we're getting to go through and analyze them and approve them. When the site was first set up, there was a misstep by our board. A number of us called up and said, look, you can't do that. That's not what you're supposed to do. And so what did they do? They listened. They fixed it. They learned a valuable lesson from it. But the point is, we can't do that if it's a federal exchange. We have the ability to control it with Idahoans and do a better job with it being in Idaho. When we get our system completely up and running, that we're not even having to use the federal back room, I believe you will not see the kind of problems and the wasted time that you talked about in people enrolling. Mm-hmm. They'll be able to log on and be able to see prices without divulging any information or giving any information. We believe our data will be much more secure, but frankly, even with us using the back room, it's much more secure than the old system. It's much more secure. You've been through the process before where you bought health insurance, and your wife has, and you would fill out an application, and we'd know every medication that you purchased, and we'd know when you saw the doctor and for what reasons, and what your height was and your weight was, and we'd know your social and your birth date, and all of that kind of stuff. All of that information was available previous to the law. So one of the benefits and one of the changes that has taken place now is that none of that information is available, not to the insurance company, not to the website, not to the federal government. None of that information is available. So,
Dean, let me ask you this final question. I got about 4 minutes left in this segment. What other issues right now are giving you pause for concern that may take longer than expected to settle at this year's legislative session? I mean, in other years it's been education and possibly taxation, etc. What other issues are you kind of concerned about that might not be a quick fix for this session?
Well, both of those issues are hot-button issues right now. And there is a debate going on behind the scenes as to how to address them. Education is the highest priority of our budget, and it has always been a personal high priority, and I think it's a high priority of most legislators. This year, unlike past years, is we seem to have the governor and the superintendent of public instruction, who has now announced he's not running for re-election, and most of the legislature agreeing that education is the highest priority. The governor had a task force that went through all of the provisions of Students Come First and all of the other provisions, and they worked through the items that they could agree to. Now, the problem with the task force, they come up with 20 recommendations, and they are lofty recommendations. They're not only lofty in meat in what has to be done and what has to be decided. For example, one of them is that we need to have a new career ladder for teachers and to retain and attract our best teachers. Well, that's not going to be completed by this session. And it shouldn't be. That needs to be done slowly and thoughtfully, and made sure that it's appropriate and made sure that it's something we can afford. Mm-hmm. All of those recommendations, all of the 20 recommendations have a hefty price tag as well. And so one of the dilemmas is how far can the legislature go? How far should we go as far as funding some of those recommendations and putting them in statute? And then at the end of the day, how do we do that and balance the budget? And of course, there's some who would love to give some tax relief, and so. One of the dilemmas for us is if you know you've got a bill coming, if you're going to agree with those task force recommendations and you know you've got a bill coming, do you give tax relief knowing that may impact your ability to carry out those things that you said you agreed with? Mm-hmm. And that's something that legislators are grappling with internally right now as they're trying to decide how to handle it. And of course, part of my job, and it's the part that I don't really like, but I get to be the wet blanket a lot of times on really some very good ideas. But I have to say, look, that may be a good idea, but we can't afford it. Where are you going to get the money? That's not a fun part of my job, but that's part of my responsibility.
Yeah, but let's end it with this next question and make it a short answer. You know, here you are, a state senator for the great state of Idaho, and I'm sure you confer notes and talk to other people, whether it's Washington, Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, our neighbors. We're probably a lot better off than most of our neighbors. Would you concur with that?
Oh, there's no question about it. We are commonly referred to in the top 3 or 4 states in the nation. In fact, just not too long ago, we saw a report, and the only states that were in a better financial situation than Idaho were natural resource states that had oil. The rest of them, we've done a much better job with the governor's leadership and our leadership in setting aside money, making sure that our bills are paid, making sure that we have a budget and we live within our means, and we respect the Constitution. By the way, that's something that really frustrated me with last night's speech, is I really feel like this president does not respect the Constitution of the United States of America, and that frustrates me.
Amen. Dean, I know that it takes a lot of time away from what you're up there to do, but I do appreciate the time and effort you gave us this morning. Please know that you're always welcome on this program. God's blessings to you, and come back in the near future, okay?
Thanks so much, Zeb. Love doing it, and we will be back shortly.
All right. Senator Dean Cameron, thank you very much this morning. We appreciate it. Oh, my. Hey, let's take a moment right here and talk to you about the Chadwick Sports Grill. 139 West Main in Burley, and they've got daily specials. Oh, listen to this. Today's special, I hope I pronounced this right, chicken paprikash. Is that right? Over steamed rice and soup or salad. That sounds absolutely delicious. People are nice. The food is great. The atmosphere is just fantabulous at the Chadwick Sports Grill, 139 West Main in Burley. You stop in and see them today. Really, really good food. Well, she's been pretty quiet all morning except for the first hour. For heaven's sakes, Gina, what's cooking over in your neighborhood?
Nada, but you've got a phone call.
Oh, I'll take one real quick. We got about a minute and a half left. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I was wondering, I don't know if this is right or not, Mr. Smith that's running for office, I was told that his vocation, he's worked as a class action lawsuit lawyer. Is that correct?
I know that he's a lawyer. Let me just check in the background here. Went from the University of Pacific, McGeorge School of Law, graduated with honors. I'm not going to get into anything without Mr. Smith being able to back it up on his own right here on my program. What is your position? Why? Why are you asking?
Well, I was just told that he was a class action lawsuit lawyer, and, according to your program over the years, those are real bottom feeders.
No, wait a minute. I want to have you draw a definition there. What and where have you heard me call these people bottom feeders?
Well, that's my phrase, but you're always upset about what it's cost with medical insurance and different things because of the lawsuits and the class action lawyers.
You seem to be antagonistic against me because of some things that have been said in private sources in regards to certain cases. Maybe I'm mad about lawyers in some case, or maybe I'm mad at doctors in another case, or whatever. But you're lumping everything together. Is that what you're trying to do this morning, is goad me into an argument against Mr. Smith?
I don't know if it's true or not. That's why I was asking you. I thought you might know.
Well, the point I gave you is that, yes, he is a lawyer. Yes, I have respect for what he's accomplished. I have respect for anybody that's gone through school and graduated with honors and gone on to lead a very prospective life and be beneficial to their community. So I don't understand if there's an antagonism there in some way, shape, or form. Let me know what it is.
Okay, well, thank you for answering my question.
All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I didn't quite understand all that, but I'm on this program. If there's a problem in a certain area, we're going to address it. If I feel like a group or an individual has caused the problem, we're going to address it. Other than that, I'm not quite sure what the caller wanted. Anyhow, we will be back after we take a little break, send it over to our main studios with Gina, and we'll have Pete Sepp from the National Taxpayers Union coming up in just a moment.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
I have not had this gentleman on my program for quite some time, and I always look forward to his honest appraisal of what's going on with the National Taxpayers Union. Good morning, Pete Sepp. How are you?
I just got him on the line.
Oh, okay.
He is.
Once again, very honored to have a friend that's been on this program many times in the past, and I'm looking forward to his conversation this morning regarding what happened last night with the State of the Union impact message from Barack Obama. Good morning, Pete Sepp. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Pete, I don't even know where to start this morning. I mean, I sat there last night, and I've said this earlier this morning on my program, and I'll reiterate it. I took notes, about 8 pages of notes last night on the speech and all the different categories, whether it was jobs, small business, energy, immigration reform, income inequality, whatever. And I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything of any value. I didn't hear of anything of any substance or any solving. All I heard was a man that was looking into a mirror with the holy eye saying, I am going to do this and I'm going to do that. What did I miss?
Well, you didn't miss much, and very interestingly, and this is not necessarily something unique to President Obama, other presidents have done this, they're taking credit for successes in policies that they initially opposed in the first place. I think energy development is the biggest here. The president is trumpeting the fact that we are less dependent now on foreign energy sources than we have been in 20 years, and the natural gas boom in America is revolutionizing our economy. Well, President Obama's Environmental Protection Agency quite nearly strangled that development in the cradle, and we should be very thankful that there were enough state regulators and lawmakers pushing back and saying, no, we've got this handled. We can set up our own rules for things like hydraulic fracturing and natural gas extraction. We don't need the feds intervening here. And thank goodness they did, because otherwise we might see a very different energy profile on our horizon now. And I'm thankful for that, but that doesn't erase the fact that the president was kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth on that issue.
Amen. All right, now I'm going to throw some things at you. Did you watch the speech last night?
I actually listened to it.
Okay.
I figured I don't want both my eyes and ears to have to witness the thing, so I just opened up my ears and read as well.
Okay. All right. There was one part in the speech last night that, it just bothers me. It just makes me mad. When he was basically talking about a large segment of the speech for income inequality, and he was going on about he personally is going to sign the edict that's going to raise the federal minimum wage to $10.10 and wants the private sector to do so. And then he stood up there. All he needed was a couple of pom-poms, and he could have been a Dallas Cowgirl cheerleader. He said, it's time to give America a raise, and the thunderous crowd ovation and everything else. And then I thought, and I said to my wife, this is the biggest bunch of bunk. Give America a raise. Here we are with a shaky economy. Here we are with Obamacare killing small businesses. Some businesses have had to cut back way on their full-time to many part-time. And then this guy stands up there and it's time to give America a raise. What kind of idiocy is this, Pete?
Well, I have a confession to make. When I heard that, and I was also reading the speech online, and I heard the applause line, I actually got up and said, yes, let's give America a raise. Let's repeal this health care law. Let's cut people's taxes. Let's cut back on our deficit spending, and let's keep developing American energy, and let's allow our private sector economy to grow. My wife thought I was a little crazy, but those are ways you give America a raise. You don't simply set an artificial wage level and say, everybody obey this now. In fact, a lot of people who might think they'd get a raise out of that are going to get a pink slip instead, because the employer who could afford to pay them at $7 or $8 or $9 an hour can't necessarily make it meet at $10.10 an hour, or whatever advocates of the minimum wage want to set it at. Maybe we might as well do $50 an hour. After all, if $10 an hour helps deliver middle-class prosperity, wouldn't we get 5 times that amount if we raise the minimum wage to $50?
Yeah, but Pete, you're the expert. I'm just the student in your classroom right now, and I'm taking notes. You're with the National Taxpayers Union. You're the professional. You're the expert. I'm sitting here, and I'm going, wait a minute. We're going to raise the minimum wage to $10.10. These kids coming down the pike, they have no responsibility. You don't know if they're going to show up on Tuesday or show up next Wednesday to go to work. These are entry-level jobs. The poor employer is having to put forth all of this information, all of this money, and give basically his heart and soul into hoping that these employees are going to be halfway responsible. And he's throwing his business on the chopping block and paying these people more money for entry-level jobs. Pete, what am I missing here?
Well, you're not missing much. And, we need to consider for a moment all of the headwinds that small businesses are facing right now. Okay, first, there is this threat of a higher minimum wage that you might have to pay your meager number of employees that you have right now. There's the threat of a mandate for health insurance coverage from Obamacare. That's another thing you have to try and figure out how to accommodate in your bottom line. There were recent increases in the top income tax rate due to the 2010 health care law, 3.8% surtax for businesses in certain income brackets if you're in the highest bracket. And it doesn't take that much to be in that bracket if you're a small business owner who pays his taxes through the 1040 system. Well, you've got that to deal with. You may have the Environmental Protection Agency breathing down your neck with new regulations if you happen to be in a business that triggers environmental concerns of any kind. You have other state and local ordinances and issues to deal with. You have the threat of higher taxes if you are an e-tailer selling goods and services online. There's legislation in Congress that may force you to collect taxes and remit them to other states on your sales. All of these things are combining into one gigantic burden that many business owners, I genuinely fear for their future because of all of these things. And I'm not sure they heard a whole lot of encouragement last night in the president's speech.
Well, here's another area for you and your expertise to give me an answer on. We touched on it a few minutes ago, is energy. Now, I'm sitting here probably about 4.5 miles down the road is one of those ridiculous, absolutely asinine wind farm turbines, cancers on the landscape. It's absolutely a ripoff. The solar and wind energy business has not made the United States any money. Let's be honest here. It has cost us, the taxpayers, a bundle. And last night he came out in his speech and said, well, with the money that we've got coming in from here, we can put more money into an expanded solar and wind industry. And I'm sitting there, good gosh, the guy that flushes the toilet, his hand's going to get sore.
That's the problem. In one part of his speech, of course, he called for tax system reform, said that it was too complicated and we had an uncompetitive rate. Great so far. He then said we need to lower that rate, simplify the system. Also great. You can do both. If you lower the rate, you broaden the tax base and simplify it, you can do something that gives roughly the same amount of revenue to our federal government. Not that that's necessarily a great thing, but you can do that. But then the president, in barely a breath later, after calling for tax reform, said just what you were hinting at. He said, well, and with the savings savings we get from this kind of tax reform, we can make investments in all kinds of things that will supposedly help our economy grow. Now, taking more money from you and I and businesses is not savings to the federal government. All it amounts to is takings. And I was disappointed to hear that, because what he's obviously saying is, while we're reforming the tax system, let's make sure we increase as many people's tax burdens as possible while they're not looking. That's terribly deceptive, and he would especially do that to the oil and gas companies. He singled them out for a $4 billion tax hike in his speech, although if you weren't paying attention, you would think that we were giving $4 billion a year to oil and gas companies. The situation is actually much, much more difficult than the president was willing to explain there.
You know, Pete, were you surprised, with your expertise and your knowledge on this type of thing, were you surprised that when he got into energy that he just basically skated around, never mentioned at once Keystone and the problems that he's been avoiding with Keystone?
Yeah, that was a real shocker. I know that there are many folks who have been saying, look, this nation is crisscrossed with pipeline infrastructure. A lot of it is aging. We need to replace it. We are not going to do ourselves any good by saying we're not going to build Keystone, because that oil is still going out of Canada, whether it comes here or whether it terminates somewhere on the west coast of Canada and gets exported to Asia. That's up to us right now. And the up to us part is whether we're going to finally approve the permitting for Keystone XL pipeline to go forward. There are Democrats and Republicans alike in the states where this pipeline would go through who are saying, could we just build the thing? Please give us the jobs. Even, believe any estimate you want. Believe the companies who will build it, who are saying there are tens of thousands of jobs. Believe the lower estimates that would only be a few thousand. So what? Whichever estimate is correct, we are talking about jobs here. We're talking about enhanced trade with our best trading partner, Canada. We're talking about more resources for energy coming into this country. It's a win-win situation. We ought to be doing it.
Absolutely. We have a caller with a question for you. Caller, real fast. Go ahead, please.
Yes, speaking of debt, you just wonder if there is a leader who has the courage and the honest sincerity and logic to admit that country that is in debt to the tune of its gross domestic product, those countries have never recovered. Thank you, and I'll hang up.
Pete, would you respond to that, please?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We are now at a little over 100% of our annual economic output equivalent in federal borrowing. That doesn't even include state and local borrowing. And you look at a country like Japan, which well exceeded that 100% of GDP level in borrowing. And yes, they still have a somewhat strong economy, a reasonably strong trading regime, but you don't hear anymore Japan Incorporated being the dominating economy of the world, and that has a lot to do with its borrowing. They have had what's called the lost decade of the 1990s when much of their economic prosperity evaporated. They've never really gotten that back.
Pete, let me ask you this. This whole Obama administration, they seem like a bunch of people that absolutely couldn't find their way out of a wet paper bag, and it's kind of like Miss Millie's kindergarten class, a bunch of kids, and they're just looking forward to going to recess. Do they really care? Do they understand what kind of situation we're in, or are they just there for the public photo shoots and the cameras and everything else?
Well, I think like most members of Congress, as well as state and local lawmakers, they're in a term of office. They Some of them have been there 20 or 30 years, but even the old-timers in office believe that these problems that are becoming ever more visible every year will still somehow not come home to roost when they're in office. And with a presidential administration, Republican or Democrat, there's a definite time limit on it, 8 years maximum. And so they're probably saying, look, we can make all these proposals now because as bad as our economy has been, as uncertain as the recovery has been, well, in 2 or 3 years, we'll be gone anyway. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really matter, and we can just propose the candy store, let the kids in, be popular, and let someone else worry about paying the bills. That's pretty ironic for this president, who every time there's a proposed increase in the federal debt ceiling, he trots out that analogy about it's like leaving a restaurant without paying your bill. Well, approving an increase in the debt ceiling is just as bad. That's like running up a huge bill at the restaurant and not leaving, but instead handing the bill to the kid in the high chair at the table next to you and saying, you pay it.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this final thought here. Was the speech, was the State of the Union valued enough last night that he swayed votes in favor of the Democratic Party to hold on to the Senate and possibly gain votes for the House? Or was it generic and bland and everybody saw through it, and it's going to be real hell to pay come November for the Democrats to try to gain anything?
I think he will give himself an early boost in popularity of candidates for a few weeks. But you know, the devil's in the details of some of these proposals, and we're going to find them when the president releases his budget in about a month. And once the budget plan comes out, we're going to see just how badly these proposals will cost Americans. In fact, we're going to know a lot of that even before the president's budget comes out, because as I speak, my colleagues at our research arm are working out a line-by-line cost analysis of what the president talked about last night, and it is running into the tens of billions.
Okay, well, listen, I really enjoyed having you back on. National Taxpayer Unions, Pete Sepp, God bless you, man. It's good to hear from you again, and I'll look forward to having you back in the near future.
Absolutely, sir. Take care.
All right, thank you much. Very nice man. And I certainly appreciate having him on my program, Pete Sepp, and National Taxpayers Union back in Washington, D.C. Wow. Let's have a little weather update with MichaelRogersWeather.com.
Hello, everybody. Speaking of weather to the Magic Valley, you got a one-day event with rain and freezing rain for it today. Please be careful. You can't expect some slick roads. But it should be raining. I don't think you're going to see any snow today versus everyone else, especially to your east. 43 for the high, and we'll get about 27, 28 for the overnight low. You'll come out of it tomorrow with sun and clouds all the way through Super Bowl Sunday. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
There you go, MichaelRogersWeather.com. Thank you very much. Gina, how's things going for you this morning?
It is going well. A little bit chilly here in the studio, but it's been a great show. Lots of phone calls.
You know what tomorrow is.
Tomorrow is Thursday.
But what else is it?
Lunch Bunch.
Lunch Bunch. First time ever at Denny's restaurant.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, sir.
Aha. That's all the better.
We've got a phone call real quick.
All right, we'll take that call. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hello, Zeb. Sir, this is old Stagecoach Bagby, and I've been meaning to call you and wish you a swift recovery from me and Richard, but seemed like every time I wanted to call, something come up. But I'm glad to see you back on the air and as mean as you always were.
Well, you know something? I got to tell you, Ray, I'm really blessed to be back on the air this early. They told me basically to shy away from trying to sit here for 3 hours on the program and wait about 3-4 weeks. But I'm really glad I'm back on the show. And I'm not going to lie to anybody, and it's just a fact of life. My leg doesn't hurt at all, me sitting on this program, but my big fat butt isn't used to it, I'll tell you that.
Anyway, it's sure nice to talk to you, and I apologize for not calling sooner.
All right, Ray. Well, God bless you. Have a good one, and thanks for your very kind wishes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
You know, Gina, that is the truth, too. I'm not used to sitting up for this long, and I've got about 19 pillows and 37 little pads and everything else. Not my back. It's not my leg. It's not my ankle. It's my doggone big fat butt.
It's your tushy that's aching, huh?
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting up at the end of the show and standing in a vertical position and saying, "Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord."
We've got another phone call.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb?
Yes, sir.
A quick comment on the speech last night. I thought the Republican rebuttal at the end was worthless. You know, I found out a lot about that woman and her whole biography, but I didn't hear too much about the Republican position, and it didn't sound like a rebuttal to me, and I was really disappointed.
I agree with you.
Your opinion on that?
No, I agree with you 100%. I said earlier in the first hour, I thought it was vanilla. It was bland. There was no substance to it. There was no attack to it. There was no, we can do better than this. This is how we can do it. And I made the statement in the first hour, and it teed some people off, but the facts are the facts. I sat and listened to that speech in its entirety last night, and I went through category by category every single thing that he talked about. And in the first hour of the program this morning, we itemized and categorized and went through everything that was bad and good. And we made more inroads of success in telling you, the audience, as to what it was and what it wasn't than the Republican response last night. That Republican response, they would have been better off showing an old Popeye and olive oil cartoon because it was worthless.
Well, I missed the first part of the program this morning, and I'm going to get wet right now. I got to start feeding my cows, but I just wanted to make that comment because I was very disappointed because she missed a great opportunity as far as I was.
I do too. I couldn't agree with you more. It left me with a feeling of why. Why didn't you utilize every option you had there to put forth a big step and inroads with other groups and people, and they let it down?
I agree.
Thank you, sir.
Good day, and I'll try to not get drowned today.
All right, sir. God bless you. Thank you for your call. Appreciate it.
Bye.
I want to say thank you again to our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And, of course, that's Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family over in Paul, John on Pole Line and Twin, and Randy. Oh, Randy, the old Seahawk fan. We're going to try. Maybe Gina can call him first thing in the morning. And we're just going to try to see if he's able to stand there and have his feet stay on the ground. He is so excited about the Seahawks making the Super Bowl. Woo! He cannot wait, let me tell you. So you stop in and check out all your tire needs, all your brake needs, the best in brake service, and tire chains and batteries, everything at all 7 locations of your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. You stop in and see them today. Really nice people. Let's take a little look here as to what I'm going to try to do tomorrow. I think I'll try standing up for half the program. Tomorrow's Lunch Bunch, too. Don't forget that. Tomorrow we've got open forum in the first hour, and then, of course, the Chamber of Commerce report, and we've got Dog Nation, and we've got the lovely lady Rita Ramsey coming out at 9:30, starving to death, and then we're going to have the Cassia County School Days. Thank you so much. And then a dear, dear friend is going to be on the air at 10:30 tomorrow, and boy, nobody knows water. Nobody knows the situation with the drought. Nobody knows the situation with the reservoirs better than this man, and that's former Representative Bert Stevenson coming on the air, and he's going to give us an update as to what this weather means right here, right now, and what more we need, and we'd better get it. So I'm looking forward to having him on the program tomorrow at 10:30. You have any final thoughts, Gina, before we wrap it up for today?
Not really. I'm just hungry, and so my brain is fading right now.
Mine, too. We've got to go all the way back into Twin again today, right after the program. I'm not a happy camper about that, but we got into Twin all the way yesterday, and somebody had forgot to call in one of the prescriptions.
Oh, oops.
Oops. Yeah, 80-mile round trip. Oops. Who cares? Gas is cheap.
Yeah, really, yeah. Really.
Anyhow, we are going to be back tomorrow morning at 8:06, and thanks to the lovely Gina Jameson running the board and the lovely Deanne being right here helping us in the studio. All your calls will be appreciated, but don't forget tomorrow at 11:30. Now, Gina, if you could help me a little bit on this, because it's going to take me a little bit more time than normal. I don't run anymore.
No.
And I'm going to have to jump in the old wheelchair and slide down the ramp, just like Superman, run over to the pickup, jump in, and then we're going to go down to Denny's restaurant for our first Big Zeb's at the Ranch lunch bunch tomorrow at Denny's restaurant at 11:30. So we'll see you there.
You got it. I'll be there.
All right. God bless. See everybody tomorrow at 8:06. Have a good one. The way things were, the way things ought to be.